All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to week 8. Hard to believe that at the end of this week, we will be halfway through the semester. I know, it's just crazy to think about, isn't it? Let's go ahead and dive into this week's module. As you may have noticed, I have finished giving feedback on your essay number 2, rough drafts. And just kind of a couple of things that I noticed about the rough drafts. I think a lot of folks are still a little bit confused about synthesis. And so you'll see in my feedback that I suggested for some of you to kind of go back and look at the previous modules for that synthesis instruction. Remember that the synthesis means you are using a theory, one of the theory readings, to help explain what you're seeing in the student essays as evidence of how you're trying to support your thesis, right? So for example, if your essay is about student fears and how it's the student fears that are getting in the way of them being successful in school, then maybe you're going to use Rebecca Cox as your primary theory reading and kind of really break apart what she's saying. You know, she talks about the fear of being capable, the fear of failing, the fear of not feeling smart enough in a class, and all of the students that are talking about that. So you're going to kind of break down her argument and then bring in those student essays as a way to help support your overall idea that you're putting out there in that thesis. There are a lot of you who have either one or the other, but not both. And the goal is to have both, right? Again, bring in those theories, bring in the student essays as a way to help support you and your main idea for your paper. So do take a look at the feedback that I put on your Google Doc. Take a look at the feedback that I gave you in Canvas. If you received a 0, it means either you didn't submit it or that I couldn't read it. And if I couldn't read it or if I didn't have access, I also sent you an email. So that is kind of, I think, explains what's next. So let's take a look at what your week looks like. Look at that. It's not a busy week. You know why? Because it's essay week. It's revising week, right? So what I really want you to be spending your time on this week is working on that essay number 2 revision. And rough draft, I should say, the revising of the rough draft. But let's go ahead and kind of click through the assignment here. As always, this is your actual essay assignment. I would encourage you to just kind of read through it again and make sure that you are meeting those basic requirements, right? You don't want to put all this work into an essay and then find that it's incomplete because it has missed something. The student essays, so I put a page in the module here just to kind of remind you that you do need the student essays and just to kind of give you those student essays again so you wouldn't have to go hunt for them. But here are the links to the student essays. As far as the writing instruction goes, there's some information here this week about introductions and conclusions. And as I have mentioned in past weeks, I always tell students for the rough draft, don't write the introduction yet. Because how do you know what you're introducing? In the same vein as the conclusion, don't write your conclusion yet, because how do you know what you're concluding, right? And so now that you have pushed through the rough draft, now I want you to think about, okay, what am I going to say in my introduction paragraph? How am I going to introduce the ideas in my essay? So there's a PowerPoint here that just kind of walks you through some techniques, things that you can do. These are examples of kind of like what a lead-in might look like. Don't let this page overwhelm you. It's just different ideas of how you could start it. In the same vein, how to write a conclusion paragraph and what that could look like. So this page is really here to not necessarily tell you anything you don't already know. It's more of, well, what could my introduction or my conclusion look like for my paper? All right, this page is all about citing the sources, right? Because in the draft, I don't really care about that. But for your final copy, you do need to make sure that you're citing things correctly. This page is jam-packed with material. So let me just show you what's here. The first is kind of walking you through how to cite some of the random things that we have in this unit, like the fear factor. And what if you're quoting a student from Rebecca Cox's article and kind of what that looks like? So there's all kinds of examples here, what you need to do when you're actually citing an article, what you need to do when you're citing a student essay, what that looks like. Okay. And then if you keep scrolling, this is the page that you for sure want to remember. What I have done is I've compiled all the readings from this unit and put it on one page in works cited format. So all you need to do is just highlight what you need, copy it, and put it on your own page. Yes. And then again, here's how to cite the student essays and what that should look like on your works cited page. I also included a couple of links here for you, so that way, if you're not really sure about how to quote something, you have access to that material and to that information. All right, some reminders about what you should do in your next step here. What should you remember before you submit your essay? Keep in mind your essay is not due until Sunday, so you have a full week at this point with your rough draft. But this is just a checklist of some of those big things that you want to make sure that you remember to do, right? Checking your thesis statement, checking your topic sentences, looking at your evidence, making sure that everything is integrated and embedded and cited correctly, taking a look at your introduction paragraph, your conclusion paragraph, and kind of going over what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. And then the little things, right? Remember that this essay has a word count requirement of 1,500 words. And if you don't meet that word count requirement, it means you automatically are getting an incomplete on this essay. It means you could, of course, you can still revise it, but you don't want to put yourself in that situation. You also need at least 3 sources. And so you need to make sure that your sources are the correct sources, right? You need to have student essays as part of this assignment. And again, just making sure that you are meeting those essay requirements just to give yourself the best chance. Again, you don't want to get an incomplete on this paper and then have to revise it, right? Ideally, you should get a passing and you're like, okay, I'm going to revise it to try to get that high pass. Again, that's an option for you. And then here it is, assignment essay number 2. Again, it's due by Sunday at 7:59 p.m. And because it's a major essay, you have a 2-day grace period, which means you have until Tuesday, the 19th at midnight to submit it. Don't wait until 11:59 to submit it because Canvas will lock you out. And then you'll probably email me for an extension. Try to get it in earlier than that if you're using that whole grace period. Remember too that there's no penalty for using the grace period. There's no percentage that's being deducted or anything like that. It's just there for you in case you need it. You are submitting a Google Doc, so please keep that in mind. And you are giving me editing access. So if you're not really sure what that looks like, then please go ahead and watch that little video. Walks you through step by step how to do that. All right. Last but not least, the writing territory for the week. Writing territory number 8 is due by Friday. And then that's it. Then we're done with Unit 2. So next week we start Unit number 3, which is all about college and you in college and kind of you thinking about why you're here at LMC and kind of what your hopes are for the future in terms of your course of study. So that's where we're going. If you have questions this week, please don't hesitate to reach out. I have conferences available for you for essay number 2. I have student hours tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Again, reach out early and often. Don't struggle in silence. I'm here to help you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. And again, remember, at the end of this week, we are halfway through. Have a great week.